Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Higgins, a licensed psychologist and relationship coach, and this is the Empowered Relationship Podcast. Today we're talking with Sherry Rash, financial advisor and founder of Greenway Wealth Advisory, about how our early money experiences shape the way we relate to money and to each other in relationship. If you'd like to strengthen your relationship with more clarity and care, download the free relationship guide, 12 Relationship Principles to Strengthen Your Love, to practice the foundations of secure, lasting connection. You'll find powerful ways to deepen trust, improve communication, and keep love alive. Let's get started. Sherry, thank you for joining us. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Thank you for having me. So am I.
Yes, and we are going to be collaborating, and I am grateful your previous host of the Everybody's Talking Money podcast was on the show not that long ago. I'll put the link to today's show notes, and we're going to be talking about wounds behind our wallets as far as it relates to money and relationship and what we're experiencing. Where would you like to start around how you support people and what you want people to know here?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is everyone has junk when it comes to money. Everyone has a feeling around it, so you are not alone. But so often, because we were trained or taught that talking about money is taboo, we don't talk about it and we just operate in a vacuum. And our thoughts just get bigger and deeper, and our wounds get bigger, and it just becomes this whole thing. So you're not alone. Talking about money is so important. And I talk about money all day, every day. And I think that we think talking about money somehow means we're sharing our salary info, how much is in our bank accounts and our 401ks. And that's not it at all. I have money conversations all day, every day, like I said, and that info never is released. So we can talk about money without giving personal details away. And I think that's sometimes missed a lot.
And do you want to give a short example around how we can talk about money without disclosing very private, personal financial information?
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, it's as simple as go out to dinner with your friends and go, who else is so annoyed by how much groceries cost? I mean, this is crazy. No one's going to go, I actually think they're very fairly priced and I think it's fun. Everyone's going to commiserate there.
Yes.
Or, at the time we're recording this, it's back to school time, like spending $60, $70 for all of these school supplies that then get returned to you barely used, or do we have to buy the backpacks, the water bottles, the new lunch boxes every single year? Just all of that. So just talking about all of that or finding someone else's perspective on it is a way to talk about money without even saying anything personal about yourself.
And what do you think that does for communities, friendships, relationships, as we talk about intimate relationship here? What do you see how that's helpful?
Oh, it's super helpful. It can only help you deepen a relationship, in my opinion. Especially if you do become a little bit vulnerable. Like I spent a lot of time on the show, talking about maybe ways to save money or ways to bring up money with friends without it being, without putting so much on the table, but just putting enough. Like, for example, the FOMO is real, right? We want to hang out with our friends, but how often do you say yes to dinner at a restaurant or say yes to brunch? And it's like, I don't really feel like spending $75 on brunch, or like, I don't really like this restaurant, but I want to be with my friends. Well, you're probably not alone. There's probably someone else in the friend group that also is going out that feels the same way. So just by saying like, hey guys, like, how about we do a potluck brunch? Like everyone bring a French toast casserole and whatever over to my house, and let's just hang out here and like, let's save a couple bucks. It's very rarely would you go, no, I really wanted to go out to brunch and this is what everyone just wants to be together.
Yeah.
And by saying like, "Hey, I'm just trying to save a couple bucks right now. Can we do this here? Or here's an alternative." It still achieves what everyone wants, which is to be together and
Mhm.
have fun together. And you don't have the $75 bill at the end. And you could probably even hang out longer and be more comfortable than a server trying to, turn the table over. So I think just by doing things like that, or saying like, man, like my daughter wants a new backpack for school, but I really don't feel like buying her a new backpack. This one's perfectly fine. Or like, it's kind of annoying, like how these kids just expect us to buy stuff all the time. And saying that kind of stuff to a friend, you're not going to be alone.
No.
I guarantee it. You are not going to be alone. And then they're going to share something, and that relationship's only going to get deeper because now you're sharing things that like you definitely don't share with other people, because no one talks about money with other people, but you're only going to get closer as a result of it because you're becoming more vulnerable or showing sides of you that no one sees.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving some examples. And I particularly like the brunch example in that it's presenting another option, it's giving solution to that also supports the need that everybody else has. Likely, if that's the purpose, is for us to connect and get together. And also just giving some time and space to express challenge, right? That there's ways in which we all feel challenged, and especially in parenthood and back to school time and the demands of that and just the transition. So to be able to make a bit more visible that not everything's just perfect and great, right? That we can show, as you said, some more vulnerability here that allows for more support to be also given. I believe that if everything's great, we're kind of putting up a little bit of a barrier that like, I need nothing. Everything's great and I'm
Right.
piled in, which I can appreciate people want to strive for. And also, this is where I think Brene Brown did such beautiful work around vulnerability, is like, that's where we feel love and connection.
Yes.
Isn't when it's all great and convenient and beautiful. It's when things are more challenging that we feel that responsiveness and more connection.
It's like the equivalent, the first time when you have a friend and you're becoming close and you go over their house for the first time when it's messy, or they come over your house for the first time when it's messy. And like you're nervous and it's like, oh my gosh, my house is a mess, but I did not have time to clean it. What are they going to think? And no one cares.
No.
No one cares.
No.
Put they just slide over the arts and crafts that are on the counters. I can put their drink down and like who cares, right?
Yeah.
No one cares. It's like, but then afterwards you feel that much closer because it's like, wow, they just saw the real me. They saw how I really live, and not
Yes.
me cleaning for 5 hours before I have a party or something like that. And that's what, talking a little bit about money, that's what that is. That's showing your messy house. But again, you're not showing everything. We're not saying here's my bank account, or it's just, hey, here's just a little insight into my life. And they're going to give a little insight into theirs, and you're going to be that much closer afterwards.
Right. And that's how we deepen in intimacy for sure. And speaking of intimacy, what any examples you have here around romantic adult relationship, intimate relationship, around talking about money and how that's helpful? That's
Yeah.
really, it could be the whole episode. But
that that could be many episodes. What I will say is that everyone has a different money personality. And, to put on some very basic ones, and you can Google it. I kind of have my own names for them, but spender saver. Um, no one says this anymore, but the YOLO, you only live once. So it's like they justify, you can't take it with you kind of thing. A money hoarder. So someone that just keeps on collecting money and they can't ever have enough of it. A spender saver. So someone that does both, they save and they spend. And it's kind of erratic that way, or unpredictable. And it's very rare that two savers get married or are in a relationship together. It's usually a spender and a saver are the ones in the relationship together, or even worse, a hoarder and a YOLO are partners. So when it comes to your relationship, you have to understand how your partner thinks about money. And often what they're saying isn't necessarily what they mean. Like, you spend so much money, It may just be I'm insecure because I don't feel like we have enough saved. But they're saying instead you spend so much money. It's really getting down to deep into what was money like when they grew up? Did they feel less than? Did they hear their parents argue about money? Were they told they can't afford things? Or conversely, was money never brought up, or they never wanted for anything? They had everything given to them or handed to them, or whatever it is. You need to understand that, because that's what shapes yours and your partner's um, relationship with money and your money personality.
Hmm.
So by understanding that first, and often we never understand that, we only fight about money or get insulted and get upset because they're throwing accusations or whatever, or we never have enough with all of that. But if you can take a minute to understand that, like, how does my partner think about money? And what's their money personality? And what's my money personality? And really being honest, that can help save a lot of arguments,
I
or that can
agree.
build a really big bridge to understanding, just by doing that.
I agree. This turns the attention less to the complaint, but more of to the underlying need. And that typically, if we aren't aware of the thing that we're needing or really feeling maybe insecure around, then we can point to all the reasons and not really address the deeper need. And so if partners can start talking about those deeper needs, right? If you weren't spending all the money, what would that allow me to feel? I'd feel more secure, or I'd feel more at ease and relaxed in that we have enough in our emergency savings fund or whatever the things are. And what does it mean to be like, if you never spend any money, and like, what would it mean if your partner spent some money? What would that allow you to feel, right? That these usually, as you said, connect with deeper needs or deeper longings. And to start talking about that, that's a much more productive conversation. Because as you said, we can get into this criticism defensiveness loop, which usually is off track and we're not even talking about what matters anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That by understanding that of like, oh, and somebody, you're not mad at me because I'm spending a lot of money. You feel insecure, which, we also kind of have to know our audience, but it's like are you feeling insecure because you don't feel like we have enough saved? Is that the problem? So how much do you feel like we need to have saved? But then it's also, we have to look at what's realistic, because there are what I call money hoarders,
Mm.
where they can never have enough money saved. Once they say, well, I need $10,000 in this savings account and everything will be fine. And then you hit the 10,000 and it's like, well, no, really, I wanted 15,000. That'll make me feel a lot better. Then you get to the 15. So there is a risk of that too. So you have to be aware that that is the extreme, the money hoarding. But you could also create a compromise of saving for a goal. Like,
Mhm.
okay, you know, math is telling us, dear, that we have plenty of money in our emergency fund, and we can Google that, Google this, like emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. So it could be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. If you're talking to someone who's more conservative and likes to have more savings, then okay, what's 6 months? Calculate that number. So 6 times your monthly expenses, that's your emergency fund. Well, math is telling us like we have enough for an emergency. Like something really bad would have to happen. Like both of us losing our jobs at the same time, to have to use this money. There's so many things, because even if we have an emergency, it's not going to use up all of it,
Mhm.
likely, right?
Mhm.
So we have enough saved in our emergency fund. Would you like us? Do you feel better if like we're planning a trip in 6 months? Shall we start a travel savings account, and we start saving for the travel? So then we're prepared and we can have a whole lot more fun knowing the cash is there when we come home versus scrambling to pay the credit card bill. Would that feel better? Um, and like kind of creating strategies that way
Mhm.
that appease both parties, because both parties need to end up happy at the end. They need to feel like they gave up something, but they also need to feel like they're happy at the end and they got some of what they asked for. So coming up with a plan together that address, and when we don't talk about money, we just end up in a vacuum and we're just in our own thoughts and we think we're right because there's no one challenging us. There's no one bringing a different perspective. So we think we're right. So the one that's wants to save, they think they're right because they're like, we need to save money. We need to do this. We need to do that. They spend so much money, all of this, but there's no one challenging it. So you just think you're right and right and right and right. And then conversely with the spender, it's like, well, we needed this, we needed that, we needed this. And all they want to do is save money. And that's no fun. And life is still for living and all of that stuff. Now, if you understand where the other person is coming from, one, you can learn from them, but then come up with a plan that satisfies both of you.
I'm so for the win-win. And it's not, to your point, not easy to arrive. Sometimes we'll have to have multiple conversations. I mean, there's legitimately some topics that it took my husband and I maybe a year or plus to actually get to a place of real in service of both of our needs around a little bit more bigger topics. So one of the things that you do a lot to help people around is hidden money wounds and how this affects our belief system and how it shows up. And I imagine in couplehood that we may be confronted with our partner holding up a mirror or presenting something to us that maybe we haven't looked at. As you said, perhaps we don't even know our money story or really have taken inventory and how we operate and how come we operate. Do you want to talk a little bit about how these hidden wounds show up and how to identify them and start working with them?
Yes. So the quickest way to identify your wounds, if you have them, everyone has them. If you have them, is when, what is your first money memory? What's the first thing you can think of when I ask that question? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the first one, but it's like whatever memory comes to mind first. And that is going to tell you a lot about your relationship with money.
Hmm.
If it was, I just remember my parents arguing about money, or my mom put things on layaway and I remember having to go to the store to pay the layaway and it was so embarrassing, or um, being told we can't afford that. If it's that, that'll indicate like where you stand with money. And it could likely come from a negative place, or like rich people are bad. I remember my parents saying like they make money, they're rich, they're no good. Or I comments that then make you feel bad now for making money and doing well for yourself. So it's whatever those first memories are, that'll help point you in the direction of what your wound is.
Mm.
And you really have to sit in that for a second and reflect on it, because that has been playing in your head your whole life. Every time you have you're dealing with money, which we do it every day, multiple times a day, likely. Every time you deal with money, that thought is kind of circulating in the back of your head, and it is
Mm.
creating your relationship with money. So if it's, I heard my parents arguing about money, then that is your wound. So it's okay, well, money is not a good thing in a relationship, or I felt like we never had enough. I grew up never having enough. So that's my wound. So I'm never going to have enough. Or if I have enough, it's still not enough. Um, Money is not a healthy thing to talk about in a relationship because it only creates arguments. So it's like where you have to look at the starting point, like where did it all start? And then you really just have to sit in and think and go, okay, how is that affecting me
Mhm.
now going forward?
Wow. So it's identifying a memory that comes up quickly and seeing if that memory is showing up in current day and how that perhaps informs beliefs consciously or unconsciously, but also behaviors. And so if we are able to look at it and recognize that likely has an aspect that shapes our relationship, wound, perhaps oftentimes some of our most pivotal moments have pain around them. And if we recall a memory that is early and has charge to it to some extent, then likely this is something we've have an imprint around or have a wound around, and that it's showing up.
Exactly.
So helpful. I'm even thinking about myself and like what my first memory was and like and I'm like, oh, it does actually show. So with my mother operated a lot as a single parent. I've had father figure and men and fatherly people in my life. My bio father died when I was really young, but all that to say, she worked at IBM. She was a customer engineer, and I think she did well. And at the same time, there's stress with being a single parent. And I have a brother. And I remember we lived in a very affluent neighborhood and area. This was outside of Portland, an area called Lake Oswego. And so most of my friends were very well off. And this all is part of my shaping. And so part of, unfortunately, hopefully this is changing more, but as you said, like having the new thing or, at school, like the pair of jeans at that time, I'm dating myself here, but it was Guess jeans. Anyway, so wanting the things, right, to feel the social currency of what I was seeing was normal. And that would cause some stress. So all that to say that the imprint of wanting more, but feeling like potentially was going to cause stress, feeling like I could honor my own desire, but it was hard to bring up in relationships. So it was like this tension. And it's just interesting to really reflect on. So if that's a wound that I carry, how that shows up now. And I will say, my husband and I recently purchased a home and it was a stretch for us. And he's more of the saver, although I feel like I save. So, but I'm more comfortable taking a risk and I'm more comfortable spending. And so sometimes our attention lies in that. But this wanting more and being creative around how to advocate for it and also knowing that that's going to pose a challenge. It's playing out
Yeah.
in my life right now. So thank you for just spelling that out. And I know I'm sharing an example here that's personal, but this is where we get to look. So what do you help people once they identify their wound and perhaps do you help them look at limiting beliefs?
So when I work with my clients as a financial advisor, I can identify, their spending, their money personality pretty quickly through the conversations.
Mhm.
And initially it's like, well, why are you here? You don't just wake up on a Tuesday and go, I need a financial advisor. Like things have to happen over time. And then maybe you had the straw that broke the camel's back to then go, we need help, right? So what we're doing isn't working. So some of the initial questions when I'm working with my clients is like, well, what brought you here? What's going on? And that's when they just tell everything. That's like, well, let me tell you. And da, da, da. And that's where through who's dominating the conversation, how the story's going, what happened in the story to make them want to make them reach out, I can figure out pretty quickly where they stand with money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just was working with a couple recently, and he's the saver, she's the spender. And, you know, he's just getting frustrated that there's just not savings. And her whole thing is like, I could die tomorrow. Um, and life is for living. And like, that's kind of it. And also, stuff is expensive. Kids are expensive. And I feel guilt. I feel guilt around everyone else is going on the vacation and we're not. So I never want my kids to be home, like on a spring break. And it's like, okay, so did you not ever go on vacation? Like, was that not something you had growing up? And how did that make you feel? And not wanting to repeat that with her children. But it's like, so just from that little bit right there, and then she's like, he's still wearing stuff from high school. He still has clothes from high school. So he's not comfortable saving $1 because he didn't grow up with much. So it's like, yeah, my shirt is still good.
Yeah.
20 years later, it still works. And I feel weird buying stuff for myself because there's so many other things. It feels selfish and my money could go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So like in like that short 5-minute introduction conversation, I already got to learn a lot about them. So then it's like, okay, well, how can we create plans that appease both of you? Travel and giving her kids experiences is a priority. Okay. But he likes, and he's all for that, but he also likes saving. So it's like, okay, let's first work on getting your emergency fund to where it needs to be, because that is a necessity, right? You need to, because if something bad were to happen, we can't have you take on debt. So that's first and foremost. So how do we address that? Who knows if the children would really give them a hard time for not going away on spring break. This may be her own self-imposed guilt and all of that junk, right?
Sure.
So it's like, let's take a step backwards and say, hey guys, even if you don't address, like, I don't even know if you don't have to address it. We only went on like our first spring break as a family. I have 4 kids this year. And every other spring break, it's like we did staycations. We found things where we lived. We had fun. They played with their friends. They got to sleep in, and it was great. So like, are you creating this whole thing yourself in your head? So, okay, even if you say, hey, we're not going to go on a trip this year. Let's think of like 3 fun things we can do for like a day trip or whatever. And that's why. Why aren't we going? Why? Well, we just think it's important as a family that we save money. And it's just as important as a family that we have money for emergencies as it is that we go on spring break. Like that's just as if not even more important. So you can have these conversations with your kids.
Totally.
And you do have to be careful with the things that you say to your kids. And I can talk about that in a few minutes. So right there, it's like, okay, is your own junk getting in the way of like creating these scenarios in your head, and then in turn it's impacting your money? So what I said is like, first and foremost, emergency fund, we have to create that. Like that is personal finance 101. So okay, that everyone's on board with that because that makes complete sense. Then the next step is, well, traveling's a priority for you. Let's create a travel fund. Once the emergency fund gets to a good spot and we all can agree on a number, because there's all different numbers it can be, we all agree on a number. The next thing is, let's create a travel fund. So then when you do go on vacation, you're going to have an even better time, because you have the cash to cover it when all the credit card bills come in from the vacation. So it's appeasing the spender because she still wants to go on vacation, but it's also appeasing the saver because now he knows there's cash and we're not going to go on the vacation until we have the money to cover it, or we're going to create a plan to have the money cover it.
Right. Thank you for saying this. And I would imagine, and just from my perspective around the couple dynamic, that being able to be supportive for both people's needs, or being able to hold space to look at, where is this coming from? Is this a wound? Is this a limiting belief? Or how do we support each other to get to these win-wins? That's where partners feel the trust, they feel the respect, they feel the alliance and the intimacy of working together. I have a client who comes to mind, and they're going through a divorce. I haven't met with her. And it was largely, by his report, her seemingly going rogue and not upholding their financial agreements and spending a lot, and him feeling 2 children, kind of the sabotage type of thing. And it was very difficult to feel together, or to feel this respect and feel this trust. So I think it can be quite challenging, both financially, as you said, maybe people who you see are coming in and they've reached a point of difficulty and are needing support, and also relationally, the wounds that can get created in the disconnection or the ruptures that can happen. I feel like in life we will be presented with challenges, whether or not it's children or whatever the goals are that stretch us, that then we perhaps encounter new parts of ourselves, and that there's a great opportunity to work together. I'm grateful that my husband and I have been having money meetings every month. And for me, it's been really healing to have these really positive, safe conversations around money. And I am very much in service of supporting the goals and, what we've been working for. And we have the spreadsheet that shows us all our progress, which feels really good and feeling really aligned that we can both feel the space to advocate for what we need. So I think relationally, it can be a real opportunity for being closer. What do you see?
I agree. And going back to your client and his soon to be ex-wife, if you talk to her, she may feel like, well, he was restricting me. He was not understanding maybe the needs for our household. So I'm buying things, when Amazon boxes show up, a lot of times there's not fun stuff in there. There's laundry detergent, there's soap, there's toilet paper, but you only see the Amazon box, right?
Mhm.
And if you don't say, hey, what's in that box, or open it up yourself, you're in the vacuum of what's in there. What are they spending
The
money on
storytelling.
now? Yes.
Yes.
So she may have felt restricted, which could have triggered something in from her childhood where she was told she couldn't afford things or they couldn't do things. You never know. So it's like where he's coming from that, well, she was spending and this was not, our agreement. And but they're both not. And what I say to all my couples is, you're both not wrong. Like you're both right. You are both right. But you need to understand that you both are right in different ways. And we need to find the happy medium between the two. So I think having that communication, like talking about, I have 4 children and I went and bought all the back to school stuff and I just put it in a room that doesn't get used too often. And I just had all the stuff in there and it was bag after bag after bag after bag of stuff in there. And my husband would walk past it, walk past it, walk past it for a couple weeks because I was like, I'm being proactive. I'm getting this stuff early. I'm not waiting the last minute. So he kept walking past it for a couple of weeks. And like I have 2 6-year-olds. So yes, there was Play-Doh and crayons in there and it looked like fun stuff. And finally, and I believe he worked himself up into a tizzy because he's like,
Yeah.
what is all of this stuff? And I'm like, that's back to school stuff. Like, he's like, it looks like Christmas in there. And I'm like, that's back to school stuff. Like, chill, like, chill out. This isn't this. And it, because we've never talked about it. I've always just done it. I've always just bought it. And, that was it. And then sent it to school with the kids. He's never really seen it before.
Right.
And now that he's seen it. And so then I screenshotted like and texted him, these are all the lists.
Mhm. This
That
is what it looks
this
like.
is what it looks like. It's not a couple of pencils and a couple of notebooks. This is what we have to buy. And right there, it's like where if like the first day
Mhm.
he saw it, like, what is that? It's the school supplies. Oh, okay. But when you keep it in your head and like you think like it's like, oh, the spending, it creates a bigger issue. It became
Mhm.
so it's like having those regular money check-ins, I think is so important. I think it's fantastic that you and your husband do that.
Oh, thank you. And it's been really helpful because one of the things that he learned that I needed was it starts with an acknowledgement or appreciation or a win, and that it ends like there's some sandwiching of positive things, which I really needed to my point around having tension around money, that it doesn't necessarily need to be that we can be aligned, work towards mutual goals, and have positivity around it. So it's been such a game changer to have the structure that we both feel comfortable with and that invite something that we're both needing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate. Mhm.
Like, thank you for always having toilet paper. I never have to think about where my toilet paper is coming from. Thank you for always having it there ready for me to,
Yes.
it's important because it is an Amazon box, but it has the Amazon box for the stuff the household is using. And I'm the one thinking about it and you don't have to. So yeah,
Yes.
I think it's so important.
Yes, and what we can appreciate. And I totally get the thing around seeing the box and the judgment that might come, and it's like, no, it's just, something not that's I would buy at the store, just as they don't have it, and we live in an area where it's difficult to get. But okay, so when you talk about shame, how do you help people negotiate confronting some of their own shame, and then also how this might look in intimate relationship. I know I'm kind of diving in here a bit, but
Yeah. So again, it's where is the shame coming from? So a lot of people have shame around money because now because they have it, right? Now they have a good job, they make good money, and they've accumulated and they've done well, and there's shame attached to that. Like, I don't deserve this, or I become who I was taught are the bad guys. I become wealthy, and there's shame attached to that. So, like, understanding what is your shame, why do you have it? And again, it comes from that money personality or that first money memory that you have. Or when I say money, what do you think of? Like,
Mhm.
that's another big question. When I say the word money, what comes to mind right away? And if it's a negative word, that tells us a lot too about what we're carrying. So removing the shame or removing just feeling bad about money is essential. Like, it has to happen, because even and I my goal is never to have people love money. I never want my clients to love money. I would love if they love money, but that's never my goal. My goal is just like, let's just get neutral, because
Mhm.
money is neutral. Money is just an object. We put our own emotions on it. We put our own stuff on it. So if I can at least understand where you're coming from, put plans into place that fit you, and like, let's work through some of this junk and get you to neutral territory, that's a win for me,
Mhm.
because now you're using money every single day. So if you have a negative feeling about something you use every day, it's terrible.
Mhm.
So let's get rid of that, and like, let's just view money for what it is. It's a way to achieve things. It's a way to do things. That's how you put food on your table. You have to spend money. That's the way you do anything. You have to spend money. So just looking at money as a neutral object, and it's a
Mhm.
tool, and it is what it is. When you open up your checking account and you see a number, it's not good or bad. You put your own feelings on it.
Mhm.
That's not enough. Mathematically, we may be able to figure out, yeah, that isn't enough, and let's put a plan in place to increase it. But the number is the number. Your situation and your feelings and your beliefs are what attach the emotion to the numbers that you see. And that's what we need to remove,
Mhm.
because it is just math, and we can figure out math, or we can, figure out how to increase the amount of money in your checking account by making slight changes. We can help all of this.
Mhm.
But what we really need to do is remove the junk. It's a lot more productive if we remove the junk from it first.
Mhm. No kidding. It sounds like deep work. And how do you help people start to look at where they're feeling bad or feeling shame, and to help process some of it so that it can be more neutralized?
Yeah. So when I'm working with my clients, we're starting at the very basic. Like, how do you feel when you open up your banking app? Or when was the last time you opened up your banking app?
Yeah.
That's also a popular question. So, okay, let's do that. We're going to do that right now. If you haven't opened up your banking app in a while, let's open it up and let's look at it. So that's one thing that we do. And just doing that, it's like, okay, the roof didn't fall off, like lightning didn't crash, like it's okay. We got through that. Okay, well, that's going to become a regular practice. Like, you need to look at this stuff,
Mhm.
because the longer it goes without you looking at it, that's actually way worse for you.
Which goes with the talking, right? That we're in connection, so we're not avoiding, hiding, head in the sand type of thing.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. And then when you open up your banking app and you see your checking account, there's a number that feels good, and there's a number that doesn't feel good. And like, and I'll say, like, I know $1 million feels good, but that's not realistic. So what's a number that's realistic that when you open up your banking app, like, that feels good. You don't get that pit in your stomach. And everyone's answer is different. And there's no right or wrong answer. Some people say, like, $500. Like, I don't need a lot of money in my checking account. $500 feels good because I know I'm getting paid again. Like, that's good. Other people say, I want $10,000 in my checking account. There's no right or wrong answer. There are some numbers I like mathematically better than others, but I don't get into that. I just want them to come up with a number.
Yeah.
And you can usually very quickly. Like there is a number that feels better than another one. So you know that generally. So we work from there. Okay, let's put a plan into place to make sure you always have that number in your checking account. That's your zero.
Yes.
So if someone says that's $1,000, I want to have $1,000. Now $1,000 equals zero. If you have $1,001, you're operating as if you have $1. And like let's just start practicing that.
I love that.
So then that now eliminates one big issue of no longer getting the pit in the stomach when you open up your app. Now we can open it up because Shari put in the plans in place to make sure I always have $1,000 in my checking account. So like that's like, level 1 unlocked. It's like, okay, now we can get through that.
And not contending as much with the bad feelings or the shame because you're getting yourself to this neutral place.
Exactly. And it's a neutral place. Yeah, it's a neutral place based off of emotions, right? Because it still feels good, but now we're neutral because we're good. Like we're okay, good. Check, done. I feel good. Let's move on. Like we got that taken care of. And then, we talk about emergency funds. And like I said earlier, like that's personal finance 101. You have to have an emergency fund. So, I look at my clients' expenses, what they're spending, and we're not even talking about where their money is going right now. Like I don't care about that. I'm just looking in at how much they're spending. So money in and money out. And I look at their money out. And even if there's room for improvement, we're not even talking about that. So I say you spend X amount of dollars a month. Math, personal finance, again, rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund. And if you were to Google what is an emergency fund, that's what you're going to find everywhere. Three to 6 months, right? Yeah. 3 to 6 months. So what do people do? They think of 3 months and they think of 6 months, but there's also 4 and 5 months in there too that you could do. And that number may sound a lot better. So, so 3 months is this much, 4 months is this much, 5 months is this much, 6 months is that. What number sounds good to you? And they pick. And then one may say, well, that 6-month number sounded better. And the other partner may say, well, I like the 4-month. Great, let's do 5 months. Done. Because everyone's satisfied because they're kind of getting what they want, yes. Right? And then we can move on. Check the box, done. Right. You don't have to worry about that again. So then once we do that, it's like, okay, well, now let's look at money in and money out. Where's your money going? And does your money match your values? Do your expenses match your values? So what is, what's most important to you? And, the process is longer than this. I'm really summarizing it.
Yes.
But so what matters to you? And I know some of this already, but I want them to say it. Like, what's tell me your perfect day, your perfect week, whatever it is. And that'll tell me what they value. So if it's travel, they value travel, charity, spending time, creating experiences with their kids, whatever it is. Well, your money is not telling me that. If I look at your money, it looks like you value Starbucks and Chick-fil-A and, that's not knowing anything.
Investment is.
That's where your money's going. That's what you're investing in. That's the value you're investing in. So then it's like, okay, well, where can we make some changes? And again, I'm not telling them, even still, I'm not telling them that they spend too much. I'm not telling them it's just, does this line
up? It's like the intentionality. It's sometimes,
Yeah.
I think convenience can in the moment be a short-term, easy pull. And also if we really look at it with a lot of intentionality around what are we investing in and our values, that can make those decisions a little bit more aligned, even if the convenient thing would have been to do what we would have done in the past, but to be choosing for the longer term investment in the value. Does that sound right?
Yeah, because you have the intentionality behind spending your money versus, well, then like say the next day, the drive-through lanes calling your name.
Like,
And it's
yes,
like,
I
what?
don't have time for lunch. I need to do this quick.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
right. Well, this doesn't align with what I want. This doesn't align with what I value. This doesn't align with our goals. But I'm really hungry and I'm pulling in. At least you thought about it, right? You
Yes.
made a decision.
Yes.
And that's okay because you thought about it versus just zoop, I'm just zooping in and I'll
Blinders on, disembodied out of body experience.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what I love about this is that this is potentially connecting with your earlier point around feeling shame and feeling bad. That even if we're aware and we're like, okay, this is the choice that I have to make, and I can recognize I don't feel awesome about it, but perhaps in preparation to feel better, I can make a decision for whatever the value is that is the investment, that is going to contribute to me helping myself feel better, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, everything is now we're becoming strategic with our
Aha.
money.
Yes, yes, yes.
We have a plan. We're thinking about it. Even if you end up doing the same things, well, then maybe your values aren't travel. Maybe it is convenience.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
if you are now thinking about everything and we look month for month, that there's not much difference. Maybe your values aren't exactly what you thought they were, and that's fine.
Totally.
But now you're thinking about it, and
And you don't maybe have to feel so bad about it. It's like,
exactly.
the fact, all the demands, like, I need this, or this feels like the best option. And this helps me do X, Y, and Z. And therefore, that's the investment. And it's looking honestly at it. And the disconnect becomes more aligned, and there's a little bit more accountability and ownership in that.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yes.
Well, I could tell we could keep going. I know we're winding down our time. Is there anything you want to say that you haven't said before we talk about how people can connect with you and what you're offering?
No, I think just asking yourself again, what's your first money memory, and what do you think of when I say the word money? That's gonna really point you in the direction of where you stand with money and what your relationship is. And then ask the same of your spouse or partner. Ask the same of your friends. We started off talking about friendships. Say this to your friends. What's you're gonna learn a whole lot about them,
Yes.
way more probably than like just, talking about the day or the week that you had. You're gonna learn so much about them and you're really gonna share. So it's only gonna deepen your relationships just by asking these couple of questions.
I love it. And I so appreciate, Sherry, today that you've been giving such practical examples and also very strategic that really, okay, check, let's move on, right? That there's a real attention to the deeper layers, and also that we can progressively support the progress. And how can people get in touch with you, and if they are wanting to learn more about what you offer?
Yep. So, my financial advisory firm is called GWA Wealth. So you can go to my website, gwawealth.com, and or come listen to the podcast. Everyone's Talking Money. We put out 3 episodes a week, and there's a lot of conversations about this. So it's the emotional side of money, but then some practical tips that you can implement. So we bring on experts every week to talk about all of this stuff. And it's just a great resource for if you're curious about money, you want to have a better relationship with it. Again, it's called Everyone's Talking Money.
Excellent. I'll make sure to put the links on today's show notes. Thank you so much for joining us and all that you've shared here today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's conversation with Sherry Rash. You'll find all the links, key takeaways, the free relationship guide, as well as the full transcript at drjessicahiggins.com under podcast. It is an honor to spend this time with you. Thank you for your listening. And until next time, I hope you take great care.